Hi, welcome to Inside the Moms Club, where being a mom is the coolest place to be. Here in the Moms Club, we believe that what embarrasses you now will make a great story later. And let's face it, you don't laugh sometimes, you're gonna cry. Join us in having a good laugh together. I'm Monica Samuels. You are now inside the Moms Club, your private destination for all things
Super
mom.
private.
Hi, moms. I'm Monica Samuels. Welcome to Inside the Moms Club, and I'm here with my co-host today, Raha Dixon.
Hello, Monica
Raha,
Samuels.
how are you?
I'm great.
Good. Well, I am great because some great things are happening in our family.
Yeah?
My son Chase just switched majors to college to his business school to major in accounting because he got a 100 on his final. I told him he wiped out the
100 out of 100
on
or
the
100
accounting final, and so the professor's like, you're a natural at this, which is amazing to the entire family.
Good, congrats.
We're all quite shocked actually, because it was the process of getting him into college was so involved. He was a baseball player, and so we did all that stuff,
all the things.
And who knew that he was gonna major in accounting? I couldn't have seen it ever coming.
And
so
here it is.
But it's very exciting. It's very exciting. So Sai is, what grade is he in?
He's 10. He's in 4th grade. I don't got to worry about college yet.
How are you coming on his college application?
Are you kidding me? Do I have to start that now?
Yes.
What?
Well, no.
Wow.
According to experts, probably not, which is a good thing we have one on
You
today.
really scared me.
But according to the other moms...
I haven't recovered from choosing.
According to the other moms, there is no time too soon. In fact, the preschool, when you get into the right preschool, that's a thing. Some moms believe that's your ticket to Harvard.
Stop
if you don't get into X preschool, you can forget Harvard.
That's why I never went to Harvard, because my parents
Your
never
parents just didn't care enough to put you in the finest preschool in town. But see, some parents believe that, and I bet you there are parents, and I'm not kidding, in Sai's school right now, that are probably having conversations among themselves, like, wow. So what is, little Sally doing for the summer? Is she in special camp she can
Are you serious?
Work towards her? Oh, yeah. And you know why I know that? Because I was one of those horrible parents. No. No. Well,
that's why I first thought we couldn't be friends, but now I really love her. So
see, I put my son I didn't put him in baseball. He loved baseball, but then everyone started to think, oh, this is a way to get to play baseball college. Now, truthfully, and I've actually been working on a book for about 10 years now. Someday before I die, I'm sure I'll finish it, about parents in sports and how they see their kids as going to college through it, because that's another little fallacy that people need to quit.
Yeah.
All parents. My son played baseball in college for all of 3 weeks, and then he broke his thumb, and it was kind of the end of it. So
really,
but
does that affect your scholarship and all that stuff?
Well, that's another fallacy. They don't have a lot of scholarships for a lot of people in these sports. So see, these people parents are not believing the right things, but that doesn't mean they don't believe them very fervently. Because, I know I did.
But I know parents will do anything to get our kid in a good school, and some parents ended up in prison to get their kids in a good school. So, I mean, where's the line? I feel like we need to know where that line is.
Well, we do, because I think it's a good time now to get the truth as to what's involved in helping your child get into the college that they belong, where they belong. And not the one that you dreamt that they would go to, or...
Yeah, listening mom, it's not about you anymore. It's not about me.
Well, a little bit, no.
A little bit.
No, it's not. So we're fortunate today to have with us an expert who's going to dispel all our myths about this and teach us the right way. So listening moms, listen up.
Yeah, seriously.
I don't care how old your child is. 1st grader, 5th grader, high school... Pay attention, because we're all we're all kind of guilty, or we potentially.
You have really scared me because I thought I had time.
Oh, well, because
I'm really.
No, well, you might. See, our expert might say
Okay,
you might.
expert, help me, please.
And you know what? Don't listen to these other parents. Like, there may be some parents, you may hear some rumors where some parents may say,
Oh, wow.
I listened to that show and I heard that Raha really hasn't started worrying about Cy,
Oh,
where he's
no,
going
now
to
I'm out
college.
there,
And,
too.
I mean, how could she not be, paying attention to that already? But I don't know what our expert's going to say, but she may say, you can go right back to them and say, I have it on very good authority that I am doing the right thing.
Okay.
Because I got good advice.
All right, guest, let's go.
So
No
don't
more
worry.
delays.
Yeah.
Let's go.
Yeah,
Get her
yeah,
in
yeah.
here.
So our expert today has she's the founder of College Prep Counseling, and she's a college admissions counselor, and she's been one for over a decade. So she's been doing this for quite a while. She's a graduate of Stanford with a certificate in college counseling from UCLA. She has a book coming out called College Admissions, The Essential Guide for Busy Parents. And I like that title because a lot of times it's the busy parents who are the biggest busy bodies in their kids' college admission.
Sure.
So they need good advice that's good for them. And she has a financial aid course called Financial Aid Key Concepts That Can Save You Thousands. And trust me,
we like that.
this will cost you thousands. I can attest to that. She's had clients enrolled at Stanford, Harvard, Yale, Brown, Michigan, Colgate, you name it. She's had students that have gone on to be great college students and have great college careers. Welcome to the Moms Club, Beth Pickett.
Yes.
Thank you.
Woo.
Thank you for having me.
Thank you for coming. Well, I personally have a million questions from my own experience. So first, you've been listening. What's the first question is, well, actually, this is a two-part question.
Okay.
When should you start worrying, or not worrying is a bad word.
Can we never worry?
Considering your child's college admissions.
Yeah.
And how involved should the parents be? Like, is writing their essay a little over the top or just editing
over
it?
the top? That happened to me last year, where at the last few paragraphs of this essay that was all about how wonderful the parents were and how the student wanted to emulate, the last paragraph said, and then when she gets to campus and she blah, blah, blah. And I thought,
wow,
this was written by, and it was not a good essay. It sounded like someone in their 50s had written the essay, because I'm pretty sure that they had. That was really over the line, and it doesn't help the student, because the admissions officers have seen so many of these essays, they can tell right away. But I want to go back to the fifth grader.
Okay.
Yes, please. Thank you.
It's too early to be thinking about college per se. It's not too early to start paying really close attention to, what does your student love to do? If you've heard of the organizer, Marie Kondo, she's got her empire of making things organized and all. She has stories of second grade where she would stay in from recess to help organize the books on the bookshelf in the classroom. This was sort of her essence and her being long ago. So as a parent of a younger child, pay attention to where your students' natural inclinations are. What do they love to do? What are they naturally good at? And encourage those all the way through. Let that be the guide rather than the name of a fancy college. Because it could be that if your student loves something more out there, none of those fancy colleges might have that program anyway.
Sure. And they have to love what they do. We can't force our kids. I mean, this is not like when I was growing up and you could only be a doctor, a lawyer, or engineer.
No, there are so many things. And especially now with people creating their own careers, sometimes I think it's hard for parents who have grown up where thinking that you go to work for a business, you have the 9 to 5, that is your career, thinking that their student might do that. But really, as things are changing so much these days, more people are creating their own lives and careers, especially now that the pandemic has opened up so many remote opportunities and people are seeing alternatives. So really what we want our student to have at the end of college are those flexible sort of skill sets that they can apply to whatever may be coming down the road.
So Beth,
as far as technology, what have you. Yes, we want them to get that degree, but there's more to it than just the name of the college.
Yeah. So Beth, you're basically saying it starts young, but it actually starts with parents letting go of what they want and really looking at what the kid likes to do. from a very young age and support that. Am I right?
Exactly. If we can support that, that will help them become their most happy, best self in doing what they want to do.
Okay, listening mom, that's you.
If we
let it go.
Rewind that a little bit as to why are the parents really focused on a particular set of colleges that have a certain name. And I've tried to look at that. And my best guess is that we want our students to be successful in their lives, to be happy, to have a career where they can earn enough money to be independent. And it almost seems like a few select colleges might be Willy Wonka's golden ticket, that if they get into college A or B, they are set for life. You know, they're going to have those successes in their careers. It doesn't always work out that way, especially if they are working so hard during high school to hit all the extracurriculars, all the leadership, A's and all the APs. It is enormously stressful. And a lot of kids, it tends to, the pressure can be too much. We really need to watch our students' mental health going through this and support who they are and not just pushing them to reach somewhere where we think they want to be so we can get an A+ in parenting because they went to college A, B, or C.
Yeah, Beth, I hear that.
Where do you think some of this pressure comes from as far as, so for example, in both of my sons, when they were applying to college, there were these boxes that you just mentioned them checked off: leadership, community service. In fact, we had one kid was part of a little group, my son and some friends, they had started this dodgeball tournament to raise money for school. One of the kids that was involved in it, the day that he cut off, he was supposed to have 100 community service hours. When he said, well, I got my 100 hours, I'm out of here. So much for community service, which is supposed to be attempting to get kids to be more involved in the community. It really wasn't. They were checking a box.
Wow.
They were competing with each other.
And then they're going to be mad if they don't get into the college that they think they checked all these boxes. They hated every minute of it. They're miserable trying to meet these criteria that they think the colleges have. And then if they don't get in, they're like, oh, I wasted all that time. I don't want students to waste their time.
Beth, you had me at miserable. I think mental health is huge. No one wants their kid to be miserable. And I think we should really, listening moms, like, let's really listen to that. Like, don't force your kid to check a box.
No. And I mean, really, we have a lot of suicides these days of students who, I didn't get into XYZ college. Really? I mean, they have so much going for them.
Yeah.
And if they have the, that high transcript with high grades, they've taken the tough courses, they know how to navigate that, then they have already built the skills that they will need for a successful career, whether or not they go to college A or B or C.
Yeah.
We need to help them understand how we're defining success. And it can't be by that narrow window of colleges that are accepting 3 or 4 or 5% from a group of amazing students.
Yeah.
There is such a wide variety. And the kids will pick up on that. If you feel like their college is unworthy, if maybe we used to call them safety schools or likely schools, where they're actually likely to get in.
Yeah.
And we don't even bother to go take a college tour. They pick up on that
Totally.
This is somehow lesser than. And those can be amazing colleges for the students.
Listen, any college should be amazing. Beth, what's the one thing parents should really do to let go of those things they're hanging on to? Like, how can they be there for their kid in this way? To not label the bad college and to not force them to,
And I'll just add to your question. Is it coming from, some of it comes from the parents, I agree. But does it also come from fellow students, from teachers? Is there a perception that, these are the great schools. And if you don't get into that, even if you're the parent saying, I don't care where you go to school. I don't care. I love you no matter what. And unless you say that, and they're still depressed, they didn't get into X. So is it coming more from society, from parents, or what?
It's both. It's their peers, where their peers applying. What are their parents saying about where it's okay? The snag is that a lot of college knowledge is regional. So there was a story of a girl in Maine, and she was very techie, engineering. Her friends all thought she would go to MIT, the Massachusetts Institute of Technology.
Sure.
Well, she went to Caltech instead. which is just as fine of an institution here in California instead of Massachusetts.
Yeah.
And her friends were like, oh, we're so sorry. It can't be any good because we've never heard of it.
Okay, Beth,
Yeah.
what do you do when that happens, when someone does that? How can you check them to
You
change the
have
paradigm?
to reassure them and send them out to read about the different colleges. There was a student of mine here in California who was really interested in business and entrepreneurship. And I said, Babson. And he said, where? I've never heard of it. It can't be any good. Start reading. Look around. There are great colleges that are smaller and don't have that marketing and branding that we know of for the super selective colleges. It may be a perfect fit for your student, and you may get some of the merit money there. So we'll talk about money a little bit later, but there are all sorts of things that will make a college a good fit. And whether it has a name that everybody recognizes is, really shouldn't be that much of the equation. That's not really what the core essence of the college fit should be.
Wow.
So what's the correct, from the parent's perspective, and I know a lot of it's based on how much you can afford, which is a very unfortunate part of all of this. But let's say you can afford it. What's the best course for you to help your child along where it's like not way too much, and obviously, and where you don't end up yourself in federal prison or you've done something really outrageous?
No prison here. We don't.
Yes.
We're not going there. And I do want to talk about that financial piece though, because it's very counterintuitive, and that's another thing I think families don't realize. But so first of all, you start with the student. You don't start with the names of the colleges and, okay, how are we going to get in there? You say, okay, student, what do you think you might want to study? Some students have no idea. That's fine. For those students, we need to find campuses where they can explore a lot.
Yeah.
But if you know that a student is interested in engineering, that takes a whole lot of our colleges right off the list because they're liberal arts colleges that don't even have an engineering department.
Yeah. I love that you said they don't know what they want to do, and that's fine.
Mm-hmm.
Let's say that loud and let's let that sink in, moms. It's fine. Your kid doesn't know or doesn't have to know, I can't speak today, what they want to do when they're 18, right, Beth?
And
the thing is, we're also not asking them to say in their applications, what do you want to be when you're 40?
Mm-hmm.
Wow.
Sometimes we have students who have an interest in something, and we can use that to help shape an application that makes sense to a reader who has 4 to 10 minutes to go through all the essays, all the transcript, everything. That's about how much time they're taking to look at each application. So you want it to make sense to the person reading it. And so you can have a narrative in there of, well, we've really been interested in scuba diving and marine biology, and these colleges have marine biology courses available. And then they can land on campus and they can change their minds. They've probably never taken an astronomy course or geology, things that aren't offered in high school. So there's room for exploration.
Yeah.
The snag there is that if they do want engineering, oftentimes you can't transfer into engineering if it is an impacted major that a lot of kids, you needed to kind of get into it right out of high school. So engineering, business, film, nursing, those are some, computer science. Those are some of the majors that it's hard to go to a college undecided, and then you can't necessarily transfer into one of those.
But it's not impossible, right?
Depending on the school, it's nearly impossible.
Really?
Yeah.
Yeah,
I've
it
seen
really
it
is.
happen
You have
in
to
my-
be. In fact, that's one of the kickers too. If you're looking at the community college option for the first 2 years and then transferring into a 4-year to save some money, it can be impossible to get into those engineering. No, not for all the schools. I'm thinking in particular. So UCLA here in Southern California, they take about 1% of the transfers into their engineering program. It's not impossible, but it's nearly impossible.
So you do have to do your research and know what's possible in all of these scenarios, obviously. You know, you mentioned marine biology, and I know that at Stanford, you majored in that. Is that correct?
They don't have a major. So I majored in human biology, but they have a marine station down in Monterey called Hopkins Marine Station. So I was there for a summer. I got 12 units for scuba diving all morning and being in the lab all afternoon, which was tons of fun. And then I did go to work for Cousteau as a writer and editor afterward. But so it wasn't a major. I was able to study marine biology, but not major in it because they don't actually have.
I was going to point out. So in your own career, you were in one direction and you've gone completely in another. So that's another part of our lives these days I mean, I was an attorney for years.
Me too.
And, yeah, we were attorneys, and look where we are today. We're so much happier.
So much.
Exactly. So,
yeah.
But those skill sets that you developed through law school,
Yeah.
they will come into play as your life unfolds, as you follow those stepping stones of what you're called to do.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But in terms of, so like SAT prep courses and all of those sorts of things, do you still advise? What do you advise there?
Oh, you want to crack open that one? All right.
And it's all kind of crazy too, because they may get rid of those exams in some cases, or what? Or do you think they will? Or
those exams, if you can do well on those exams, it will help you in the admissions process.
Okay.
And it usually is worthwhile to do some kind of prep. It doesn't always have to cost a lot, but going in cold is not a great way to do that. Most students, when they are going into their junior year of high school, that October, are offered the PSAT, the preliminary SAT. They can get an idea from that test how well they're testing.
Yeah.
If you have scores that are in the top 50% for enrolled students at a particular college, you're going to want to submit those scores. They will help your application. If your scores are, you just tank the scores. Most colleges these days are test optional. They're starting, they went that way for COVID. Now they're starting to rebound and go back. MIT now requires standardized tests again. But the UCs have said, we're done. You can have a perfect score on the ACT or the SAT. We don't even want to look at it.
Wow.
So it helps some students who really don't test well, but they're at I think, and this is my personal opinion, because the colleges will argue, well, we have some students. I mean, you basically go into two different piles of students that they're comparing, the ones with the high test score or the test scores and the ones without. A good test score can help you, especially if you are of a certain demographic where they are expecting you to have a test score.
Yeah. Wow. All
well,
right.
it is interesting. And I know my family, we spent quite a bit on our son getting test prep. And then later on, when it was all over, he said, you know, I really wish I had done what that guy's told me to do, because I literally just went in there and did the homework really fast. And I could have done better on the test. I think that's why you were taking his class.
Yeah.
Anyway, well, we have a lot of questions, but the Zoomer moms have a lot of questions as well. So let's bring in our Zoomer moms. Welcome, Zoomer moms. Well, let me introduce them really quickly. We have Leslie Harrell, and she's the mom of a son and a daughter. Julie Orchid, who has two daughters. Sean Zanotti, who has a son.
Hi, Sean.
We have Sabrina Jones, who is a mom. And let's see, how many children do you have?
I have a daughter who's 7 years old and a son who's 17.
Who just applied for college, right?
Okay, so this is perfect for you.
Yeah.
And Jennifer Marsh, who has a son and a daughter. So welcome, Zoomer moms. Let's start with Leslie. Leslie, do you have any questions for Beth?
Yeah, I mean, I have a senior, so I mean, we're in the thick of this again, and he's our second one, but you know, he's so different than our first one. I was talking to Beth before the show about our oldest one. Like, she did not want, and my husband and I knew from the get-go, like, if we had any opinion and she went to a college and she didn't like it, that we would be the sole reason that, you know, that she was there, and that we would be massively blamed for her failure. And we only went there because you told me to go there. So my husband and I bit our tongues hard to bleeding for a year. And she literally asked me the day before she chose University of Texas, where I thought she should go to school. And I was like, ooh, wow, okay. And then my son is, you know, probably not as academically strong as she was, but I mean, you know, I think like, and to me, like, I think this class of 2023, this upcoming class of kids kind of had the real raw end of the deal from a COVID standpoint, because their entire high school was marred, like no balance of like a solid year until their junior year. So that's a little late in the game for that crew. So like for those kids, do you think that the landscape's going to look a little different for them in terms of college applications? And like, you know, like his GPA is not great, but I look back at his transcript and I see where COVID really impacted him academically. And, you know, how do you kind of get around, you know, I mean, he's done moderate like extracurriculars, but and I'm a huge believer, honestly, that like there's a school for everybody. So I'm not super over the top about it, but just like kind of if you're in that mid range and you're not going to get into any of these schools, and you kind of don't want to get into the bottom schools, but you're kind of like going to be even hit or miss on the middle schools. Like what kind of, it's just different because it's just not in that highly competitive. I've got a kid who's going to try to go to Harvard or UVA or Stanford. It's very middle of the road, but I think that's more kids than not. But what's your kind of feedback on that kind of age group, this group of kids, and then like how do you just kind of navigate the middle road?
So the class of 2023, you're exactly right. They had such a weird freshman and sophomore year that they are just now getting to the point where they learn how to juggle. Oh, I'm going to class, I'm going to sports. They haven't had those years that the earlier classes had to get used to it. So most of my the students who are finishing their junior year right now, getting ready to apply, they couldn't even start thinking about topics that they might want to write about in essays. I try to plant little seeds in the spring of junior year so that they're not underwater. It doesn't impact their academics, but they're starting to think about their college list and they're getting going a little bit. Then we hit it hard in the summer, because I want that college list done in June and those essays done before they start school again. Otherwise, they're going to be flattened by their academics in the fall. It's too much for them to take on. This year's juniors, the ones who have just finished junior year, are slower than the ones before. They've been a little bit overwhelmed by how much they have to do just with the APs and the finals and that sort of thing. Some of them have a lot fewer extracurriculars, and that's where I think we really see the impact of COVID. Although the super creative kids figured out something to do there. And so it's another sort of separation that we can see who were the kids who were thinking outside the box and able to figure out something to do as an extracurricular when COVID hit. But overall, I think the extracurriculars are going to be a lot lighter in this application season than they have been in the past, simply because of COVID. As far as the middle of the road, it's sometimes easier to place those, I'd say that as if college counselors cannot help them get into any one particular college. If you have someone that says they can guarantee something, you've got a Richard Singer and you're in that whole Varsity Blues.
Abort.
Exactly. Watch out for that. But the students who are, I'm the valedictorian, I deserve a place at an Ivy League institution, there are still more kids who are valedictorians than could fit in all the Ivy League.
That's right.
And so they have very high expectations, and they don't necessarily understand the worldwide competition for getting into some of those schools. Yeah. The students who aren't quite that high level on the GPA, they sort of open up and relax a little bit more, and they're looking at colleges that might be a good fit. And especially if they're looking at something like early decision, they can pop into those schools fairly easily if they're demonstrating to the colleges. And of course, early decision is the pinnacle of demonstrated interest. I'm interested in your school. I'd really love to go there. I can hack it academically to get to graduation. That's what the colleges are worried about. They want the students who are going to be engaged on campus, able to do the academics, and love their college. Does that help at all, Leslie?
That's great.
Oh, yes, definitely. I mean, like I said, I think there are more people that fall in that gap. But I mean, I hadn't even really thought about the aspect of like the fact that those kids just didn't, well, mine certainly was one who didn't have the opportunity to get involved in as many extracurriculars. Yeah. And like, that's definitely impacting him. I mean, in that regard. But I think you're right. I think it kind of takes some pressure off. I mean, I feel so much more relaxed. Kind of being in the middle category, it's kind of more freeing because I think you have a lot more options and a lot more.
So that's great.
Sean, and just see what you like.
Sean, do you have a question for Beth?
I do have a question. I am a mom to a 15-year-old boy. This is we just completed freshman year of high school, and he's an athlete. And I'm just wondering, now we're in the summertime, how much of a push should I be giving him or should I not be giving him? He is all focused on training, doing all of his sports for the summertime. And I'm more of like, let's try to get ahead of this. Let's take a class or two. Should I push so that he takes a class or two throughout the summer in addition, even though it's not something he really would like to do to prepare for college? Or is it okay, freshman year going into sophomore year to wait a moment?
I think you can wait a moment, but there's something really important here, that if he's really involved in his athletics and he has to maintain a particular GPA, and that's the reason he wants to go to school, and he's got all his friends, that's a really good thing. It means he's happy at school. He wants to be there. He may not love the academics. A lot of the kids are not all about the academics, but it's his entree into the school environment. He's got a place there. He's on the team. So those are really good things. Whether you need to hit the academics over the summer, I would say, unless he's falling behind in something or you want him to get ahead a little bit. So some of that means planning your 4 years, if you can, ahead of time. We were talking earlier about, when do you start? It's never quite too late to start, but it helps if you start earlier. Okay. So if your student has any possible interest in maybe math, physics, engineering, ideal if they can get through calculus by senior year. So then we backtrack it. Well, to get into calculus senior year, you've got pre-calc and trig junior year. You've got algebra 2 sophomore year, geometry freshman year. That means you need to get algebra 1 in 7th or 8th grade. So there's a trajectory there. Yeah. So unless he's behind, if he's really going to hate it and go kicking and screaming, don't do it. If there is a class where he can explore something that he might be interested in so that you can do that discovery, let's try it. So here's hands-on engineering, even if it's online or down at the local community center, so that he can say, wow, I didn't know I love this, but I love this. Or he can say, oh, I thought I'd love this and I don't. Pivoting is just fine. It helps us determine what options he might want once he gets to junior year and starts the application process. Does that make sense?
I love
it. Makes a lot of sense. I really appreciate that because, as you said early on, it's so much pressure. I feel like I want to make sure that he's okay and he's prepared to go into school, but he is, straightforward on really focusing a lot on sports at the moment.
All right.
So let me throw something in, if I may. When you're thinking about those 4 years of high school, think 4 years each of 5 different courses. 4 years of English, 4 years of history, social science, 4 years of the hard sciences, biology, chemistry, physics, 4 years of a foreign language, 4 years. If you're looking at the super selective schools, not all of them will require that full 4 years. If they're not that selective, but if you really want to go to the most selective colleges, they're looking for 4 years in one language. They don't want you to go 2 years of one and then 2 years of another. So did I get all those? English, history, what am I missing there?
Mm-hmm. Thank you, Beth. That was great.
Yeah.
So look at fill in those blanks, plan out the trajectory. Doesn't mean you can't switch out some classes as the student decides what they're interested in doing. But at least if you have that block in there, you should be covered and not, you will be an actual candidate for some of the colleges where if you don't have enough math, you don't even bother to apply. You don't have enough of what they're looking for as the minimum. And for the more selective schools, you need to go above the minimum.
Wow.
So that's the key. Sabrina, do you have a question for Beth?
I know you do. You have a 17-year-old.
It's so great. Thank you. It's really helpful. So I was wondering if, so my son is all over. He's really struggling with the whole college thing because he's an excellent student. He has straight A's and he didn't want to go to college. He wanted to kind of go into real estate, but he also has this entrepreneur business drive. And so he's a little bit in this category of a little unknown, and yet he has an idea. It's like within the idea, there's this unknown. There's this still trying to find himself. And the universities he got into, he wasn't crazy about. He went and saw all of them. And he was like, The one he wanted to get into, he didn't. And that was San Diego.
San Diego State, University of San Diego, UC San Diego. Which San Diego?
State.
Okay.
It was State, yeah. And so then he said, then he was torn. He accepted Fullerton, Cal State Fullerton. And then just on Sunday, he said, you know what, I'm going to go to Santa Monica. It's number 1 in transfers. I'm going to do business. And, it's just been such a back and forth. And I guess what I'm curious about is, I heard you say earlier that it's difficult to get into business if you don't know. But given that he's going into Santa Monica with following through with doing courses for business, he would have a great opportunity to transfer, correct? Is that accurate?
So just
Transfer,
for people who may not be as familiar with the California, Santa Monica City College is a 2-year community college. And in California, at our public colleges, the Cal States and the University of California schools, they save room in the junior and senior years for transfers from our community colleges so that they can finish their bachelor's degree. But figure out, if you can, Sabrina, does he know which college he would like to transfer into to finish that degree?
He was going to go to San Diego, but who knows, in 2 years, it possibly could change.
Right. So my recommendation would be, if he can have a few target 4-year colleges that he wants to transfer into, look up what we call the TAG, the Transfer Admission Guarantee. Find out what classes he needs to take to get through those general ed requirements in community college and some of his major classes, so that it can be a smooth transfer, because there can be a lot of hiccups in that, what we call articulation from one college, a 2-year college, to the 4-year college.
Wow.
And then find out what the transfer rates are, and is it guaranteed? And don't forget, some of the private colleges like Pepperdine also have transfer admission guarantees with our community colleges.
Oh, yeah, that's great. That's great information. Well, the next mom I'm gonna call on, she and I turned college admissions into an exercise program, because I think we've walked the length of America talking about, well, how's Chase's essay? Well, how's Sydney's test score? So Jennifer, do you have a question? I know you do, for Beth.
Oh yeah. So unfortunately, I think my daughter has anointed me. She had an honorary degree in college counseling, because I sort of love the process. Because to me, there's so much discovery in it.
Yeah.
You discover who you are, what you want to be, where you want to live. Am I a rural? Am I an urban? Am I a, to me, it's so much, it requires more self-reflection than any other process they've ever had to. And even just writing a personal essay, they've never written one before. So all of a sudden it's like, I don't know what I think about me. I'm supposed to explain who I am. I don't know who I am at all. So I found it a great bonding experience with my daughter. But she was like, she's a driver. Like, it was her, she wanted the trophy. She put in the work. And, my son he's an amazing kid, and he has so many, also, he's a driver in different ways. So it's been a totally different process with him. And, my daughter was like generalist, undeclared. She's doing something in college that she really couldn't even take in high school. Like geography. They don't have geography in high school. Right. Well, at least not at our small school. And then sociology, right? They don't have sociology classes at our small high school. So, and my son is likely to do something similar. I don't think he's going to be but he's not going to be a generalist, right? He's probably going to be more of a specialist, and we're going to apply to schools that have a specific major he's interested in. Mm-hmm. So my question to you is and he's going into something he wants to go into, not that we need any more sports managers in the world. I know we're not like saving the whales, but a lot of people are like, I remember going to a presentation at UVA, and they're like the last thing we need in the world is more sports marketing people. And I was like, well, that's kind of what he wants to do. So that's where he finds his flow. So I was like, that's where we're headed. Yeah. But what do you do? Like, I don't know anything about that field. And, he kind of has to be the driver of this. I can't. So I'm like, do I have to meet with people in that field to see if that's really what he wants to do? Because if we're picking like Syracuse University in the middle of the frozen tundra, that could be a problem if he gets there. He's like, I don't know about this. Maybe I want to do sports psychology, which he could have done literally anywhere.
Yeah. Right. But Syracuse is such a big school. He has a lot of options to change his major once he gets there, if he's happy with the school overall. And that's a really dynamic school where a lot of kids are super happy. Yeah. So I don't necessarily think that even if he changes his idea of a major, but right now, if that's what he's enthusiastic about, try to follow his lead. Let him make that choice, with the caveat of the finances part, because that's where I see a lot of families making mistakes of, my student can apply anywhere. We'll just make it work. And those are the ones that are getting their Social Security check and still paying, the kid, either the student is still in debt, the parents are in debt. The college list should be at least considered in light of the whole financial aid aspect of it, whether you're, are you full pay? Do they think you can be full pay, but you can't really? Are you going to get some need? Which colleges meet need? So there are a lot of nuances there. But if that's what he's interested in, let him follow that until something else takes him to the next step. Yeah. Because even if he ends up not in sports marketing, he's learning marketing skills. And marketing skills are applicable to all sorts of things. So it's a skill set that, again, is sort of transferable to another realm as he's moving through his career.
It's like the constant lesson for
That's
parents is to let go.
College is hard. So pick something you want to do, because whatever you choose, it's going to be hard. So just pick something that makes it less hard for you, because you at least find it interesting.
Exactly. And, get in and get out. Because if you talk to a lot of people, we were just talking about this a minute ago, who are in their 40s, 50s, what did they major in college? It has nothing to do with what they're doing right now.
Oh, ain't that the truth?
Well, that's true. And Jennifer really pegged that. It's such a rite of passage, these selective college admissions, to figure out, who am I? What do I want? Where do I want to go? That's a big part of the
Beth,
fun
I
of this
still
process.
don't know that. Can you help me?
That is so true, because I would be president of the United States right now, because I majored in political science.
That's right.
For what that was worth. I went to law school, but for what that was worth. I'm not doing that either anymore. Now, another mom here who I spent a lot of time commiserating with, who as through the process with our children who all graduated together, and she was a very big success. Her daughter has a scholarship in theater.
Wow.
And she's going to be a doctor. So.
Oh, that's awesome.
So
no
far.
Pressure.
Okay.
I won't tell her.
No pressure. Now, what's your question for Beth?
Hi, Beth. I'm Julie. I wanted to tell you that, first of all, I'm 100% sure that my freshman in high school didn't get the memo that she's in high school. So let's start there. And then I would like to know, I have heard that freshman year for some colleges, in high school may not count and that sophomore, junior, senior year, they can kind of look at that. Is that true? And the second part is, I think is critical. What do you say to the parents? Are you do you meet with them first and say I'm going to need you to pipe down when I help your kid and be in the background? I think a lot of parents need to hear that on college counseling and how you counsel when people hire you. It's because there can be a lot of crossing. And I already have one child in college, but the second child, I'd like to hear the answer to both of those.
Okay, so the first part about how I work with, the second part actually, how I work with the parents, it depends on the parents. And it depends on how well they get to know me and how they see me working with their student until they feel like, okay, she's got this. I can just be, and my goal for the parents is to just be the cheerleader, shore them up, tell them that you love them no matter what. Make sure that they know that you've got their back as this unfolds. Be there to have conversations that encourage them to move forward in the process, that you're, all for them, and letting them drive this car. That you're supporting them, you're here to help them navigate without taking over or bringing your own wishes and desires and hopes and dreams for them into the process. Not that you can't share some of this, especially insight about, I noticed that all of your life you've been sort of this and that. Have you ever considered? But it needs to be very delicately done, because this is also the developmental stage where they are separating from the parents, and this is one of the reasons why they don't want to hear from mom and dad.
That's right.
Or why
no kidding.
Yeah, they look at someone like me and they won't listen to you, even though we might all be saying the same sort of thing. So yes. And then the first one with your freshman, what was the question again?
My question is there a college that we can search by that freshman year doesn't count?
So there are some here in California.
Thank God. Okay.
Here in California, the UCs don't look at ninth grade. Most of the private colleges will look at ninth grade. And if you don't know, where they're applying. This is the problem with the freshman, sophomore, junior years. We don't know yet where they're applying. So my goal for the students is to have them take the courses, take the harder level courses, the AB or the AP, Advanced Placement, or the IB, the International Baccalaureate. Keep going at the highest level you can so that you have the most options available to you when you decide on your college list. And even if you don't apply to the super selectives, if you've taken those really hard courses and gotten good grades, you're a better candidate for the less selective colleges.
Very interesting.
There it is.
A lot of kids do stumble in ninth grade. So even the colleges that are looking at the transcript and see some hiccups in ninth grade, but they see an upward trajectory, they notice that.
Yeah.
So that's true. That's true. That's
well, it's not that they're not counting the ninth grade. It does still wrap into the GPA, but they'll notice that the student got their legs under them and they figured it out. Does that mean that they're going to take the place over a student who nailed it right out the gate? No.
Okay.
They still, I mean, I've had parents just angry but it was freshman year and they've done so well now. They've got a 4.0 junior year. But they had a 2.5 freshman year. It weighs down the whole GPA.
That's
crazy.
So
well,
okay.
there are still going to be great colleges available for that student, but that student who unless there's a really unique, compelling story, that student's probably not going to be a viable candidate at the schools that are taking 10% or fewer of the applicants.
But let's remember, Beth said, be loving and supportive and not stressed.
And that's very hopeful advice.
What are you trying to say, Raha?
Don't stress.
Yeah,
it's not going to help.
Yeah, we'll get through it. One really quick last question because we're running out of time.
We're all going to check with Raha
I know you
in a little
do
while when
financial.
She gets older, and we're all going to have a rally.
Yeah,
I know.
You do financial advice for parents too. And what are some of the unexpected costs? Like, what could you red flag for parents to? Is there anything that they need to be on their radar that they may not be anticipating?
Yes, they need to make the student's college list based on the financial outlook at each of those colleges for their individual family. So step number 1 is to go online to FAFSA, FAFSA, free application for federal student aid. FAFSA forecaster. Type in all their information about income and assets and all that, and it's going to spit out a number, an amount, basically your EFC, your expected family contribution.
Wow.
Yeah.
That's
so based
great.
on, and most of the colleges will take that EFC, and that is it's the keystone number for calculating financial aid. Let me try to give you a really quick. I don't have much time. This whole second chapter of the book is all about.
We're going to bring you back. Don't worry.
Of course. But I mean, the irony is that lower income families can qualify for a ton of grants, scholarships, no loans at the most selective, most expensive colleges.
Wow.
Those colleges may end up costing them less than their state colleges. You cannot just look at the overall cost of attendance and go, that's too much for us, and run away. You are leaving so much money on the table.
Wow. That's great.
Great advice.
If you have a high income, but you want merit aid for your student because you can't just write a check for $80,000 a year for 4 years,
Sure.
you have to write off all those Ivy League colleges that give no merit aid whatsoever, and look at the colleges that offer merit aid.
Yeah.
So it's really important to do that before they apply, so that they don't say, great, I got into Princeton, I'm so excited. And you're like,
but you can't go. Yeah.
Heartbreaking.
This is
Don't
all
want to do that. Get that list, vet that list before they apply.
This has been great information, Beth. We could go on for hours about this subject.
And I am
sure.
sufficiently
I do all the time.
overwhelmed
I
and
bet you do.
terrified.
We can find you. You're at collegeprepcounseling.com on the internet. Your book that's coming out, College Admissions, The Essential Guide for Busy Parents, and that's coming out this month, I believe. Is that what I read?
It is on the 20th.
Okay, great. Well, we will check that. Is there any place else that parents can find you on social media to?
I've got some Instagram and LinkedIn and all that.
All
but
right.
I have to ask my assistant
Okay,
how to get
great.
there.
Well, great. Well, thank you so much.
Thank you so much for having me. I love talking about this.
Thanks for joining us, and thanks to our sponsor, Catch Events, which they're wedding planners and event planners across the country, and they turn your dreams into reality. You can find them at Catch Events _ on Instagram. You can find us on our website, InsideTheMomsClub.com, on Instagram at Inside the Moms Club. We're on the UBN Go network. You can hear us wherever you hear your podcasts. And on Instagram, we have really gotten into Instagram. And we want you to participate, moms. We want you to be part of our Instagram experience. So send us videos tell us your story about your child's college application experience. Tell us something great that you did that we might not have covered here today that you think would be great advice for other moms out there. We would love to hear it and share it with other moms. Well, the time flies as always. Yeah. What can I say? Well, we'll be back next time with more celebrities and extraordinary moms just like you. We know that your me time is precious and valuable. Thank you so much for spending it with us. Remember our Moms Club motto. If you don't laugh sometimes, moms, you are going to cry. And nobody wants to cry. Rarely do you want to cry. You could cry at a wedding in happiness, but don't cry otherwise. Okay. Have fun. Have a good time. Thanks again for joining us. We'll see you next time inside the Moms Club.